Will you accept the yield from Senator Martin?
I accept the yield, Madam President.
Please proceed, sir.
Madam President, I stand in firm opposition to this budget before us. I would like to thank Senator Martin for his kind words. Senator, you are the new guy. I was the new guy once, and just like you, I was appalled by the process. Something so important as the budget should never be something that we are debating in the middle of the night in the last day of session. The budget should be the very first thing that we talk about as a body, as a legislature. This state needs a leader that comes to the legislature and says, no bills until we have a balanced budget. That should be the first thing that we talk about. Senator Martin, I appreciated your kind words, and I'm sure Senator Welch is watching, and I'm sure he would be proud. Madam President, after the last tax increase in 2010, the largest tax increase in state history, billions and billions of dollars absorbed out of our economy. People were worn out. I can tell you, as a 23-year-old state Senate candidate knocking on doors across the 33rd District, I could hear it in their voices. I could see it in their eyes. They're tired. They can't take it anymore. And I firmly believe that my election was a referendum on that policy. And I am incredibly astonished that tonight another significantly large tax package of $2 billion is at our desks. I don't appreciate it. And I can tell you that my constituents in Portland, East Hampton, all the way down to Westbrook and Clinton do not appreciate the fact that we could not get together and come up with a responsible budget that didn't place the burden on the taxpayers once again. We couldn't come up with creative solutions together. And the problem was that the Republicans were not brought into the room. There's a saying that my father always said to me growing up. He said, "You can bring a horse to water, but you can't make him drink it." You can bring a horse to water, but you can't make him drink it. So often in this chamber, I feel like we provide the amendments necessary to solve the problems of our time. We provide bills that change regulations that allow new businesses into this state, and they're shot down. Sometimes not even taken up for a vote. And meanwhile, in our committee process, we pass thousands of bills. Bills that we have not yet figured out exactly how much it's going to cost our state, because we haven't passed a budget yet. The process is simply flawed. And we will never have a balanced budget. We will never have a balanced budget in the out years. We will continue to run billion-dollar deficits if we continue this process. Now, this budget results in another OFA projected out-year deficit of $1.6 billion. That's a nonpartisan office that is telling us that we're going to have to come back 2 years from now with a $1.6 billion deficit. We shouldn't even be considering this right now. This should not even be up for discussion. Taxes, a total tax increase of $2 billion. Think about what that's going to do to our economy. Think about all that money that could be used for creating jobs, could be used for new construction, could be used for parents to put money in a savings account for their child to go to school, to attend a college, to their university of their choice. All that money absorbed in a state government that has clearly shown to its people that it can't balance its budget. This budget also places unnecessary harm on our middle class. It reduces the property tax credit from $300 to $200. Now, I know some people say, "Oh, well, that's just $100." We've been taking in increments that money from the middle class for years, and they are feeling the squeeze. They simply cannot take this anymore. This property tax from $300 to $200, this credit will result in a $152 million tax hike on the middle class families and lower income families altogether. According to DRS, according to DRS 2013 income tax data, 81% of those that utilize this credit have incomes of less than $100,000. 66% of those that utilize this credit have incomes of less than $75,000. And 44% of those that utilize this credit have incomes of less than $50,000. Now you tell those people, reach out to them and tell them that you're taking $100 away from their budget. Another issue I have with this budget and with the process in particular is omnibus bills. We are continuously packaging multiple bills, oftentimes bills that people don't even have a chance to read, in a single package and forced to vote on it immediately. To me, this is unacceptable, and it can't continue. There should be segregated decision-making. There should be a segregated decision-making process based on economic logic for every single bill that we vote on. An honest debate. And as a result, we're not seeing that. With this particular bill, companies like GE, companies like Aetna, companies like Travelers, some of the greatest companies in the world have told us that they're considering to leave the state. And meanwhile, we have innovative businesses like Uber that are trying to come in. And we have sat on our hands and not helped them create jobs in this state. You can take the horse to water, but you can't make them drink it. Now, GE and these companies, they're thinking of leaving. But what about the people that can't leave? There was a poll done that said 50% of the people in this state would leave if they could. Now, I think Connecticut can be one of the greatest states. I love Connecticut, and I think it could be one of the greatest states in the country. It could be the greatest state to start a business. It could be the greatest state to raise a family. It could be the greatest state in the world to buy a property. But if we continue to pass budgets like these, we won't get there. And there's people that are trying to sell their homes but can't. There are people out there that are looking to get out and they can't. So what happens to the people that can't leave? What happens to them? Well, in this budget, aside from the reduction in their property tax, it delays the earned income tax credit, a tax hike of $22 million on working class families. The earned income tax credit was an idea that Ronald Reagan had. The idea was to get money directly to the people that need it the most. We've created, unfortunately, large bureaucracies that prevent that money going directly to the people that need it. And the earned income tax credit is something very well intended, and we need to continue to work to reform. But in this particular instance, we're taxing it. A hike of $22 million on working families. It repeals the scheduled sales tax exemption for clothing, footwear under $50, and reduces the sales tax holiday from applying only to items under $100 instead of $300, representing a $280 million tax hike. $280 million on footwear and clothing. Necessary needs of the people of our state. That's something that we shouldn't even be considering. That is something that should not even be on the table. People are struggling. Clothing and footwear, we're better than that. We are better than that. It balances the budget on the backs of the poor by reducing the burial benefit for the truly indigent in our state, reducing the benefit from $1,800 to $1,400, measly $887,000. Not to mention what we've taken away from giving those who served us, who fought for our security, the proper burial. Close to $100,000 was taken out of that budget. Now, I don't know if you've been reading articles lately, but during a hiring freeze, State Treasurer's Office just hired someone for around $85,000. I like to call it the Candidate Protection Program. Well, that candidate will never serve in this body so long as I live in the state of Connecticut. And it's unfortunate that in a time when the budget is so tight that people would use government money for political purposes. It's shameful. This also taxes car washes, a new tax totaling $13.6 million. $13.6 million. Taxes motor vehicle parking, a new tax totaling $12.2 million. Anytime you pay for parking, you will be paying the sales tax. Taxes ambulatory surgical centers, $35 million. New tax that results in higher health care costs for anyone who needs fertility treatments, endoscopic services, cancer screening, our general surgical services at 61 surgical centers statewide. And as we spoke about before, the hospital tax. A $500 million hospital tax was proposed 2 years ago, resulting in thousands of layoffs. And last summer, we were all concerned about the challenges we face with Ebola, diseases, and we're laying off...
Excuse me, Senator. Senator Looney, why do you stand, sir?
Madam President, thank you. Madam President, I rise for a point of parliamentary inquiry.
Please state what your parliamentary procedure is, sir.
Yes, thank you. Thank you, Madam President. Madam President, it is now after 11 p.m. And pursuant to Senate Rule 29, when a question is under debate, a member can move.
What purpose do you rise, Senator Pisano?
Madam President, we stand at ease.
Stand at ease.